Hey there, this is Dave Hompes. This is Hompes Method Practitioner Training, and we're on to video 3 in our little mini-series teaching you the main principles of the Hompes Method. And in this short video, we're going to talk about the Hompes Method Seesaw. So, as you can tell, the video format for this video is just slightly different from the other ones. It's not me in front of a camera. We're actually recording this straight onto the computer via ScreenFlow. And so we're in the classroom, so to speak. And this presentation gives you a taste of how the majority of the Hompes Method training programs are actually delivered online. You can access videos, training videos like this online on a week-by-week basis, taking you through the programs, both Hompes Method Level 1 and Hompes Method Level 2. Each module contains a series of lessons presented online using this style of video. Accompanying each module is a series of handouts that, depending on the lesson, includes lesson summaries, diagrams and handouts that you can use with your clients and patients for educational and resource purposes, reference articles, and also the specific references themselves from the information that I share in the lessons. I keep as much of the training programs fully referenced as I possibly can to make sure that we stay within scientific and intellectual boundaries, shall we say. Now, on to the topic of this training video, which is the Hompes Method Seesaw. So, in training video 1, we talked about the 7 areas of health, and then in training video 2, we talked about the vitality scale. And I said that symptoms in the 7 areas of health, which are digestion, reproduction and sex, energy, aches and pains, mood, sleep, and then skin, hair and nails, are generally caused when or result from people slipping down or descending their own personal vitality scale. And the reason people descend the vitality scale is generally because they have an imbalance in their seesaw. They tend to be eating too much bad food, they tend to accumulate bad bugs, and they tend to accumulate bad toxins in the body from the environment. At the same time, because they're eating too much bad food, they're not eating enough good food. Because they have too many bad bugs, they tend not to have enough good bugs in the system as well. And they tend to lose nutrients because they're not eating enough good foods, and then their bodies are under stress, so they use the nutrients up faster, so they get an ever-increasing gap between the demand for nutrients in the body and the supply that they're able to get into the body. Now, that's all very good and well, but we also have something that I call the Triad of Health. And the Triad of Health, something that I learned from Dr. John DeMartini, where we have a triangle with 3 points. I just want you to focus on the green triangle. And you have a point that has structural and mechanical written by it. You have a point that says mental, emotional, and spiritual. And you have a point that says biochemical. Now, with functional medicine and the Hompes Method, we're really teaching people how to address the biochemical point of the triangle. But the body can also be affected by the structural and mechanical issues, and also by mental, emotional, and spiritual issues as well. And they all work off of one another. So you can have biochemical problems affecting mental, emotional, spiritual health, and you can have the opposite. The mental, emotional, spiritual health can actually start to affect the biochemistry. Problems with structure and the mechanical function of the body can also influence the mental and emotional, spiritual realms and health, and also the biochemical health. And that's all to do with what we would generally term stress. So this little diagram, you've probably heard the straws on the camel's back analogy, whereby you keep putting straws on the camel's back. At some point, the camel's legs are going to buckle because the weight of the straws on its back is just going to be too high. So if you look at some of the straws that are on this particular camel's back, you'll see that there are things like chemicals, you'll see food allergies, you'll see tobacco, air pollution, then you'll see anger and frustration, yeasts and molds, soil and water chemicals, inhalant allergies, not enough love, nutritional deficiency, sugar and junk food, no exercise, home chemicals, and then work and things like that. It doesn't give you, or it doesn't include things like a misaligned hip or a misaligned head and neck complex, that if you're a chiropractor, an osteopath, exercise professional, you of course know can actually cause a significant amount of stress on the body. But this just gives you a nice little visual representation, and also your clients a really nice little visual representation of a whole bunch of stuff that can get into the body, or that might be lacking in the body or in a person's life, that creates stress that eventually causes the legs to buckle. And it's a nice little analogy, and I find it very helpful to use with my clients. Now, central to symptoms in all the 7 areas of health, and many, if not all, of the chronic diseases that we're seeing highly prevalent in society these days, is the concept of inflammation and its twin process, which is called oxidative stress. And inflammation tends to happen whenever the body is irritated. So when there's too much bad stuff in the body, remember the seesaw, and there isn't enough good stuff in the body, you will tend to have a much higher risk of inflammation developing. And so when inflammation happens in the body, it can be systemic, it can be global. So it might be triggered in one area of the body, let's say for example the digestive system, where someone might be eating foods that are inflaming the gut. They may have chronic infections, bad bugs in the gut that are causing inflammation, and that inflammation has the potential to spread around the body, a little bit like a fire that starts in one room of the house, ultimately spreading around the entire house. Inflammation can affect any and every tissue. So if you go from 12 o'clock on the diagram, you have the heart, then you have the skin, then you have kidneys, then you have the joints, then you have the lungs, the brain, you have the immune system, you have the blood vessels, then you have multi-organ diseases like diabetes and chronic fatigue and what have you, and then you have even the eyes. All of these areas of the body, all of these systems, these glands, these organs, these tissues can be influenced and affected by inflammation. And just to repeat, the inflammation tends to happen because there is too much bad stuff in the person's body, and there is an inadequate amount of what we would term good stuff or necessary stuff. Again, this is a very straightforward manner of explaining these principles that can be quite complex in a very, very simple way to your clients and patients. What's this process called oxidative stress? Well, we won't go into too much detail. We do in the course, but it's basically to do with the atomic and molecular structure of certain atoms and things in the body, like oxygen atoms. And if an oxygen atom loses an electron, it starts to bounce around a little bit like, the old pinball machines that you used to get in the amusement arcades. You used to pull the hammer back, and you used to fire the pinball around the machine. It used to fly around and bang into everything and light things up and cause buzzers and bells to go off and what have you. And that's a little bit like an oxygen atom that loses an electron. It kind of bounces around in the cell or into the cell membranes, into the organelles within the cell, and it can cause damage. And it can really interfere with metabolic processes. So oxidative stress tends to happen as a result of things like poor diet, pollution. That would be things like bad food and bad toxins, drugs, which can almost be considered bad toxins in many cases as well. You've got exposure to radiation, cell phones, TV, radar, living near electricity pylons, and x-rays and things like that. You've got stress in all its forms. You have injury and trauma, you have aging, and you have infection, the bad bugs. Now, the more inflammation and oxidative stress is in the body, the more the body will perceive that it is under stress, kind of under the cosh, if you like, and the more it will tend to use up nutrients to try to deal with that stress. So you get a loss of antioxidant nutrients and certain energy-producing nutrients. The energy-producing nutrients are things like iodine, which is important for the thyroid, magnesium, iron, and what have you. B vitamins are another very important set of nutrients, lipoic acid. And you'll also have a reduction in antioxidants, things like vitamins A, C, E, and the substance called glutathione. And the more inflammation and oxidative stress there is in the body, generally the faster the cellular aging of the body will be, which will then ultimately lead in disease and death. So many of the really forward-thinking and switched-on doctors around the world now realize that this chronic inflammatory response, this enhanced or increased level of oxidative stress happens because of too much bad stuff being in the body, plus the mental, emotional, spiritual issues as well that we know affect people. And it ultimately leads to symptoms and disease. Okay, so those twin processes are very, very, very important. Now, in terms of seeing this kind of model in action, well, when I wrote my book, the H. pylori from Heartburn to Heart Attacks book, I described this model in a little bit of detail. And by the way, you receive all my digital products, my ebooks and things when you join the training program. So all Hompes Method practitioner training participants will receive all my books and digital products, as I say. Now, just onto that model, just very, very quickly. H. pylori, which is a bacterium that lives in the stomach, there's still some debate about whether it's supposed to be there and how much of a problem it is, whether it actually causes disease and so on and so forth. And we'll go on to that in the course, in the program, in a little bit more detail. But H. pylori in the medical and scientific literature has been shown to increase systemic inflammatory markers. So it lives in the stomach and the small intestine, and it causes pockets of inflammation where it buries into the digestive tissue. And that was something that you would expect, because if you had a nail or a tack stuck in your finger, it would create a lot of inflammation and irritation as well. But what happens is you have a systemic or global inflammatory response that can result from having H. pylori living in the digestive system. So as well as just getting inflammation in the gut, you can also start to develop inflammation elsewhere. We also know from the literature that H. pylori increases general oxidative stress markers. We also know that it decreases both local, i.e. in the gut tissue, and circulating, which is basically globally around the body, antioxidant levels, things like vitamins C and E. We also know that it can decrease vitamin B12, folic acid, and also iron, which can actually increase a substance in the blood called homocysteine, particularly when the B12 and folic acid becomes depleted. And homocysteine is a chemical that is toxic to the artery walls and can create atherosclerosis, which is this process where the arteries get clogged up with plaque. H. pylori has been shown to significantly alter circulating cholesterol profiles. It's been shown to increase blood pressure and insulin resistance. It doesn't necessarily do this in everybody, but in some people you will get this response. It will accelerate and worsen atherosclerosis, as I say, in some people, and it will increase the risk of angina, heart attacks, and strokes in some people as well. And so this is how the model of inflammation and oxidative stress, where you get a little pocket happening due to, say, an infection or maybe toxins accumulating in a certain part of the body, but then you get this overall global response within the body that is pro-inflammatory. And it's the process that may well lead to virtually every disease that we know. So how on earth do we help our clients and patients overcome these kinds of imbalances? Well, it's prudent to help them remove the bad stuff and replace the good stuff. Because if it's too much bad stuff and not enough good stuff in the body that is one of the major catalysts for these disease-causing processes, then it simply makes sense to remove the bad and put the good back. But how do we go about doing that? Well, we go back to the cake analogy that I taught you in the previous little mini lesson. So what we said is that in the cake analogy, you have a cake which is the foundation. It's the lifestyle of your client or patient. It's the food that they're putting in their mouths. It's their eating habits. It's how they eat that food. whether they're running around eating it in a stressed state, or whether they're actually honouring their food and giving themselves a chance to digest it properly. It's about their blood sugar balance. It's about their exposure to electromagnetic fields. It's about how much sleep they're getting and the quality of their sleep. It's about how much movement and exercise they're engaging in. It's about their breathing and how much oxygen they're getting into their bodies. It's also about whether they're living according to their true high values or their purpose, and that they actually have direction in life. You know, social stress, self-imposed stress through beating oneself up can also create a lot of problems here. But of course, with Hompes Method, we're not really going into the psychology because we're not qualified to do so. The icing on the cake is where the functional medicine kicks in. It's about doing the right lab testing at the right time for your client. What's going on in their gut? What nutrient deficiencies do they have? Is their liver functioning optimally? What hormonal imbalances do they have? And then once we know what's going on an individual basis, from client to client or patient to patient, it's then about cleansing their gut and repairing it. It's about detoxification strategies. It's about nutritional replacement. It's about hormonal balancing. It's about organ and gland support, specific organs and glands that you may find are a little bit weak or need some support. They're overloaded, for example. It's about getting their neurotransmitters balanced. And if they need it, it's about addressing their structural and mental, emotional, spiritual issues as well. But again, this is functional nutrition and functional medicine. We leave the structure to the structural experts, the osteopaths, the chiropractors and what have you. We leave the mental, emotional, spiritual work to the experts such as the psychologists, behavioral specialists and so on and so forth. So ultimately all we're doing if we're communicating this with our clients and patients is we're showing them the first seesaw where there's too much bad stuff and not enough good stuff. And then we're saying, look, we want to reverse the seesaw. We want you to get lots more good food. We want to put the good bugs back in your system. We want you to get lots of good nutrients in your system. But we want you to have less and less bad food. We want to find and clear out the bad bugs. We're going to find and detoxify the bad toxins. And as you do that, you'll climb the vitality scale and you will overcome symptoms in the 7 areas of health. So, by removing the bad stuff and replacing the good stuff, we help clients and patients reduce inflammation and oxidative stress. This helps them ascend the vitality scale, overcome symptoms in the 7 areas of health, as I just said, and rejuvenate their vitality and performance. Now, from a client communication perspective, this model is pretty cool. It's really fantastic for helping your clients and patients understand why they feel unwell without a whole bunch of technical jargon. And, you know, whether you join the training program or not, please feel free to use the explanations, the analogies that I've just given you, because I think you'll find them very, very, very helpful. It's going to enhance your compliance and ensure that your clients and patients achieve better results in less time and with less wasted money as well. Because once you get them to be able to understand what's going on in their body in a very simplistic term, they will understand exactly why you're making specific recommendations to them. And when they understand why you're making the recommendations, they are far more likely to comply and adhere to those recommendations. They're going to get better results. They're going to tell more people, and then you're going to have an army of hungry clients and patients waiting for your services, and that's going to only enhance your business. Okay, in the 4th and final video, the next one, I'm going to introduce you to another simple analogy that you can use with your clients and patients to enhance their understanding of how a quote-unquote problem in one area of their body, for example, H. pylori in the stomach, can actually cause symptoms somewhere else. For example, mood problems, low energy, skin challenges, etc. Okay, thank you very much for watching and listening to this video. I'm really hopeful that you enjoyed it. I hope you're getting a lot out of this video series, and I'm looking forward to seeing you on the next training video where we're going to talk about what I call the Olympic rings health analogy. My name's Dave Hompes. This is the Hompes Method Practitioner Training Intro Series, and I can't wait to see you again next time. Thank you.